American Sniper is directed by Clint Eastwood and stars Bradley Cooper as Chris Kyle. Now, this movie follows the story of the sniper Chris Kyle. This gritty war movie follows the life of Chris Kyle, who during his 4 tours in Iraq had over 160 confirmed kills. Basically, he's one of the best snipers in American history. Now, for the most part, this story is more or less by the books kind of biographical film. Basically, you get the early childhood, moving upwards up until the war, and then basically through the war and after. It's a basic biographical setup, just timeline. And so in that sense, it's a little bit predictable, but for the most part, that doesn't really matter, because it's not only about the plot as much as about the themes and the characters and how this conflict is changing Kyle. Now, as for the story, because it's the way it's set up, it is kind of predictable in several ways. Like, the climax of this film, I actually saw from a mile away. Like, if you've seen a war movie before, you will see the climax coming. Just the way it's executed and how it's done, it's just predictable. I hesitate to say it was cliched, but it's definitely, at least for me, it was pretty predictable. That being said, it was really cool and really interesting, but at the same time, not really surprising at all. Especially if you understand this guy had over 160 confirmed kills. Bradley Cooper gives an inspiring performance as Chris Kyle. I've seen Bradley Cooper play in so many different movies. I remember first seeing him back in The Hangover, and wow, has he come a long way! I mean, it's not just the obvious parts, like those obvious moments where he's really emotionally beat down or emotionally wrecked. I mean, those are pretty easy to spot. It's the little things that just make him so believable. I did not see Bradley Cooper in this film. I saw Chris Kyle. And that is really saying something. Just the way he talks, just the look in his eye, the way he walks, just everything about him is just not Bradley Cooper, it's Chris Kyle. And that is just really, 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 really immersive and really interesting to watch. And as you see him taking these shots from a distance, pulling the trigger, someone drops dead several feet away, several meters away, and you just see part of him die inside. I mean, I already talked about that a little bit earlier, but just the performance, you can just see in his eye. I mean, I've done acting, it always fascinates me how actors are able to just get a certain look in their eye that just emulates that, how they get that look in their eye that they just killed someone and part of them just was taken away. Like, you can't do that kind of thing and not have part of yourself taken away. And Bradley Cooper gives an amazing performance with that. And it's just, it's great. He doesn't play him as the big hero, the legend, the one that everybody's talking about. Everyone talks about in this film for sure, but he's just a guy. Granted, he's got an incredible skill with the sniper rifle, but he's just a regular guy. And this war is tearing him apart. Taking each shot, seeing, and even when he fails, like when he sees a comrade of his die, that eats away him so much. But that one's a little more obvious though. The pulling of the trigger, that's way more subtle in his performance. And that's fantastic. This movie is really, really gritty. I mean, it's very unapologetic. I mean, it is very brutal. There are times where it's really, really hard to watch. And that in the best way possible. Like, I was sitting there like... I was really, really surprised by how brutal and gritty it was. I mean, there'll be a scene or two where it's just really, that for anybody, I'd be very surprised if you were able to watch so easily. Like, it is really hard. It is so gritty and brutal. I can't really explain it, but just the lack of music just makes those intense moments even more intense because you feel like you're actually there. This movie has just... It has enough confidence in itself where it knows that it doesn't need music to be intense. Some movies rely on music to set the mood and make it intense. This movie, it's like, no. What's going on screen what is happening in the action, what is being portrayed in the acting, what is being seen in the eyes and the souls of each character sets the mood. Doesn't need music, does not rely on the music, and that is definitely worthy of praise. The downside of this movie is that it can really drag on at times. Like, it can really drag on. This movie has some pacing issues, so it's not perfect. There are times where scenes will just drag on, or they'll include a scene that doesn't feel really necessary and just disrupts the flow. Like, there are times we'll just immediately jump from a super intense action sequence or super intense scene of drama in Iraq and then suddenly just jump instantly to a very, very, very dull scene back at home. And that happens throughout the film. Now, that being said, they're not all unnecessary. A lot of them are necessary, and some of those scenes really help make the contrast between him in the war and him back at home. But there are times, though, where it just seems like it's filler. Like, there are scenes of dialogue, like, both when he's in Iraq and when he's at home, where it just seems like, is this really necessary? It just seems like filler. And you really want to get back to the intensity and the action, those intense scenes that really hit home and make it really, really tough to watch. So there are some pacing issues. And another issue of this movie, as I said earlier, that one thing that makes the movie so intense is its lack of non-diegetic music. There is one scene one action scene, where it uses non-diegetic music, but it feels so out of place. Not just because the rest of the movie doesn't have music, but because of what it plays. Like, it's this weird, like, heavy drum beat music. Like, I don't want to spoil it for you, but they're like, hey, let's go get these guys, let's go! They're wanting payback or something, and they just start playing this heavy beat drum music, and it feels so out of place. It pulled me out. Like, basically this entire movie, I'm in this movie. But that moment, like, out of all the times in the movie, just pulled me out. So overall, this is a fantastic film, a really gritty, non-glorified war film that really, really tells a story of this deeply troubled man who's just being changed as this war progresses, and how it impacts not just himself, but his family too, his wife and his children, and it's just an incredible experience. Granted, it has a few pacing issues, and there are times where it gets a little bit long, and some characters aren't fully delved into, and I would like to see that. But it's just a very, very enjoyable film, very moving. For ratings in my reviews, I'm not going to use numbers like 7 or 8, 9 or 10 or anything. I'm going to instead use a different system that I came up with in reference to my username on YouTube, The Prodigal Knight, which is in reference to the Jedi and everything. So I'm going to give each movie or video game I review a rank based off how much it understands, how much it still needs to learn to reach that perfection, and how much it can teach to other movies, like what other movies should learn from, or could learn from in that given genre. So, my ranking system will work. It will start off from the bottom, the lowest score being like no rank, like nothing. You don't get any rank. You shouldn't exist, or you just aren't right for this. Above that is Apprentice, and then above that is Padawan. Above that is Knight, and at the top is Master. So if you get a Master rank, that means that not only is it almost a perfect movie, and just very much amazing, it also can teach, like, a lot to other films. Other films can learn from this. So, for American Sniper, I don't think it was quite the level of Master. It was really, really close, but I'm going to give it a Knight rating. What do you think of American Sniper? Have you seen it? Please let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of my review, what I could do to improve in the future, because I really want to know what you think. And if you like what you see here, please click below and subscribe.